Hey guys, this is Coat Merchants here. Carlos. Um, yeah, so this past weekend I made top eight with Max, and we just wanted to talk about the list and kind of go from there and talk about my matchups that day, other card considerations I was thinking about, and we'll kind of go through all of that in this video. So to start off, I did not think I was gonna like Bright Lights. I did pre-release with, and I played Max first one, and I kind of enjoyed the hyperdrive interaction. And then I asked this other guy in the co-merchants, Miles, for
Well,
a
that's
list
me.
he's kind of
Yeah.
been brewing up for Max. And ever since then, I've been kind of changing it up, asking for his feedback, what not to do, what to do. And so here we are. So this is the top eight list I came in. Um, the day of the PQ, we went to Sacramento, all three of us actually, and I was like, oh, do I bring Katsu, who's my normal main, or do I just bring in Max? And I decided just to go with Max to have more fun, and it paid
Yeah.
off. So game zero, or first game, sorry, I played against Brishan, who was on Bravo. He's a very strong player. I was pretty
Nah, he's
scared.
washed it.
Hey,
Yeah.
whoa. That's my
Well,
goat.
yeah, yeah. So we played Bravo. I was a little nervous, because Brishan's. I don't want to see Brishan game one of the PQ. But we played, and I think my starting hand was like Mechanoid, Red Hyperdriver, two other cards. So I think I was just like Mechanoid in the first hand. I boosted, got a Hyperdriver out, pocketed the Mechanoid, and then he just came in hard. I drove into another red hyperdriver, and so I got the second hyperdriver out. He was putting in a lot of pressure. I was able to kind of uh, combo out the third hyperdriver and also play out Max, Mechanoid, I mean. And he was at 38 at this point, so it's very early. I don't usually recommend going mech that early, but I knew what was gonna happen. I knew that I had high octanes later, and so what ended up happening was I used like four mech usages throughout the early game, and I got him down like 26-ish. And then after that, I stopped using mech. I just kept going face, no, just boosting, waiting for my high octanes. I hadn't seen any high octanes at this point as well. And then I banished one, saw one. I banished one, and then what ended up happening was I had a boost turn, and I think I banished two, I believe. I banished two, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna boost this like last. I made a hyperdriver, and then I played like throttle blue and not boosted. I draw up, and it was that high octane. So I literally
Wow,
had
like you knew
a
your pitch deck.
yeah. It's almost like I was
Something like that.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
This was not pitch deck. I just knew it was gonna come up, and I was gonna kick
Imagine being a
myself.
good enough player.
Yeah. So basically, I just he was at like 16, 18 by the time I high octane comboed him. And you do like three, four boosts and like four mechanoids, and that's pretty much done. So,
That's
um,
enough damage, because
yeah,
Mechanoid also has a secret fucking text that says overpower on it.
exactly. So, that was really fun, obviously. Uh, and then second game I played Azalea. I was not happy about that matchup because it's not an easy matchup, but yeah, it was just a good match. He was a little slower. I was able to get hyperdrivers out. I went mech. And then like after I made mech, I drew into high octane. I blocked out. I arsenal the high octane. Next turn I had a blue and three red boost cards, and then I was like, yeah, if you can't kill me here, I just win. And that's what happened. Third game, I played another Bravo, and at this point, Brishan told this other Bravo about what happened. So he kind of had advanced
The
knowledge.
hearts.
He went
Who's the
super
other
hard.
Bravo?
Um,
Was it Aaron?
Maybe it was Aaron. I'm not sure. Um,
Asian dude?
no, he was a white dude
Person
with the
you, I was
beard.
like that person you carpooled with. You're not sure if it was him.
No,
Oh,
no, no. It wasn't Aaron. It was the white
Oh,
okay,
dude.
okay.
oh, Aaron was in your
Anyway,
carpool? My
Yeah,
bad.
yeah, yeah. I was like, I don't know a white dude named Aaron. But
Okay.
no,
All right.
he went Rouse the Ancients. He was going really hard. I had to block, just set up items, set up the hyperdrivers. And I think I was like at 5 when went into mech. I was at 5 life, and then at that point I had like a gas up turn. I swung twice. He blocked out, and then well, he didn't block out, but he was just like, well, if I don't block, he gets free damage, and then all my crush specs can't go through because I had mech. So I can block with a card in mech, and then that basically saves me like a dominated crippling crush. And then I got high octane again. At this point, he hadn't like blocked with his he hadn't fully blocked out with his civic steps. So on my high octane turn, like 2 mechanoid usages in, on the third high octane, he like blocked civic steps, gave me a quicken token, and allowed me to like
Oh.
hit another time with mech. And he was like, "Oh, I'm
Oh.
dead." So he was kind of
That's pretty rough.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty rough on that side. Um, then the fourth game, I played another Azalea, and yeah, I played France's
That
Azalea.
was me.
Yeah, I just got rolled. I was gonna turn into mech like one turn, but he had like a 14 damage arrow, 14 damage lace with
Double blood rot
blood rod,
arrow
and then like the
and
infecting
inertia
shot.
too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, if I can take care of one, blood rot, but then he's like, oh, it's two, and I'm like, oh shit. So I had to block. I couldn't make mech, and then I just kind of like lost from there. And then
I
round
high rolled
five,
super hard
yeah,
there.
you did. You really did. It was I mean, it's what I expect from Azalea. So the first Azalea game was like, oh, he was slow, and I just took advantage. And then fifth game, I was gonna go against Oliver on his Dromai. At this point, it was pretty much confirmed I got top 8 since I won out the first 3 rounds. So Oliver and I ended up conceding to Oliver so that he can get into top 8 with me, and we went to get food, and that's what happened. I got into top 8. First round was I got my Kofol Max, which is also pretty pog. And then I played against Austin's Islander, which was really tough. Islanders is one of the matchups where I'm still trying to figure out how to approach the best. So I'm making changes to help address that matchup. What ended up happening was in that game, though, I had like early tempo. I was able to chain multiple pulse wave harpoons just to like make his arsenal targets kind of clunky. And then at one time I just drew a dud, and then he just like set up like frigid, and then he kind of like chained disruption from there, and then clawed his way back into the game, and then ended up winning, which is what can happen against Islander. And yeah, but overall super satisfied. And yeah, we can get into the deck. Do you guys have any questions about the matchups that day? I think it was pretty self-explanatory.
How did it feel playing against Blizzard against Icelander? Did Blizzard like get blanked because you can make action points so easily?
Um,
Or
I feel
not
like
really?
Blizzard was still tough though,
That easy.
because that game, like when he started chaining, like at the end, I was drawing clunk hands, like all reds, and then like I was just like, ah. And then it's weird because they can respond to the hyperdriver triggers, and then yeah, like one time, I think he iced. No, I'm thinking about other Islander games I've had, but yeah, it was just like Blizzard is still hard to play around if I don't have the blues in my hands. Um, yeah, I'm only running 18 blues, so that's kind of still tough against Islander. Um, yeah, I don't know. Blizzard's still kind of tough. I still need to figure out and play test that matchup a lot more. Yeah.
All right. So
Miles?
your deck.
Yeah. So
I get it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So yeah. So the whole idea of my deck is just to go mech generally all the time. It's pretty apparent. We have Banksy's, um, just really good for on hits, keeping hyperdrivers around. Cog Space Legs is also really nice. I really like this addition, because we can get the extra action points mech twice if we've only boosted, and then we still have our base legs or like our leg equipment, so we can pop off into Mechanoid. This wouldn't be the case with like a Achilles Accelerator. Um, Galvanic Bender, good +1 for Mechanoid, block 1. Yeah, block like banish this off Mechanoid. This is the last card you banish off Mechanoid. Hyper X3, really solid, blocks 1. I barely ever get the Hyperdriver draw if there's 3 under it. I think it's happened like twice in a decent amount of games. Um, but it goes under. Hyperdrivers go under it. I make mech. However many it's under this gets added to the amount of usages I have on Mechanoid. And then
Was
Foundry
that ever
Heart.
relevant with
Yeah,
like the
well,
amount
it's not super
extra, like in the
relevant.
Bravo matchups?
I think it is. It could actually. It's somewhat relevant because sometimes I make mech with just token hyperdrivers. And then if there's like a non-token under this, I can use that to banish so I can get gas up synergy.
Oh,
Um,
true.
but that's not often where I like only make mech with only token hyperdrivers. Um, but this card's really nice. I really like this. Also, very pretty in coil foil. They really did the foiling really well. And yeah, and then the Foundry Heart is just block 3. I kind of use the text a lot to like Max and then Banksy if I feel like the opponent's not going to block. Um, so it's been really clutch in that sense. Um, yeah, we can get started with like the overall deck. Actually, before we get into the deck, we can also talk about the sideboard here. Also, delve into the equipment slots. Achilles, etc., and Visitronic Model I, Kano, and Islander. Um, Pistol, I'm still on the fence on. I'll probably be cutting this. But the idea of including this in the sideboard was like in more aggro matchups, I would put this in instead of Banksy's and just have more relevant. And then High Octane would be a bit more relevant with how I could use it more aggressively.
Yeah, so like if you draw it before you draw your Mechanoid, you can actually like
Yeah.
you aren't like losing tempo. You're like you can just like use it then to try to keep bracing the person, right?
Yeah, exactly. Um, so that was like the main idea behind this. And then Magnetic T-Bones, these were in there just for Lexi hate. I haven't played like too many Lexis to see how like functional this
Yeah,
was.
like you didn't play any right at the
No, I didn't
PQ.
play
So
any at the BQ. Just two Bravos, two Azaleas, uh, and the Islander. I
yeah,
guess it's
I feel like
relevant
you could
because
run them against
yeah,
Azalea because
yeah,
you'll
you
get
could run it against Azalea. I ended up
uh
not doing it because I was just like I'm just gonna do my 60, the base 60, and just see how it goes, and then
It's not as bad breaking or back breaking.
no, it
yeah,
isn't.
yeah.
If you're feeling
So it's
fine.
relevant against like ninjas. Bolton kind of sort of if they're running combo, you can kind of bait blocks with the courage and then like punish them with these two. But yeah, it's very niche. And then rev ups are basically for poppers for Jomai, but they're a bit more versatile in that if there's a hyperdriver, it can be more aggressive, 2 cost 6, and
Yeah,
some a bit more like versatility. I think Miles, we had like Red Big Berthas in here
yeah, because it was
beforehand.
like, well, I was like, oh, I don't really think I'm trying to play it out for like Red
Yeah,
Big Bertha, and then it's like, well, if it gets boosted, then it's a little upside
yeah,
against Romai. But I think Rev Up is like solid because it's
yeah. I
just
think
extra
it's
red
also
throttles, which
exactly. I think it's
it's
fine.
not bad. Yeah,
Yeah, and max fees for for more aggro matchups, but also really important against like matchups where you expect the other player could pivot to fatigue, like Dromai or Bravo. So that late game, if I get into mech, I don't have to use every turn. Like I don't have to mech every turn or hit with mech every turn. I could have an off turn where I like triple boost into max V, and then I'll chip a good amount, and then mech will kind of get there afterwards.
I'm
Um,
surprised you don't have max V in your main 60.
yeah, so we can get into that, but like overall, it's like a kind of a slightly clunky card, but I can see why people would want to go put it into the 60. So the main 60 kind of revolves around these cards. I run only 5 of the hyperdrivers. I had 3 yellows before, but I just found like the yellows, I didn't want to see them all the time, so I dropped them down to 2. I could see arguments into, removing them and maybe putting like recharges. But so far, this has been kind of like sweet spot for me. I'm definitely willing to try out different configurations. Yeah, and then high octane's pretty self-explanatory. If I'm boosting a lot and I'm under mech with this on, I can hit with mech multiple times. This is kind of like this is like the thing you want to do in Maxx when under mech. So that's pretty much the power card. And then I'm also seeing a lot of people are like, oh, like why expedites? Why Med-X? Um,
Yeah, why, Carlos?
yeah, these are only relevant if you run the non-token hyperdrivers. So
Why
there's
blue Med-X? Just because it costs 1?
yeah,
I
cost
think
one
it's
block.
just you need
Yeah,
blues.
yeah, just to so there's been instances where like I'm under mech, I have a hyperdriver and I have some random blues and Max is in there. If I pitch a blue for blue Med-X, the last thing they're worrying about is the on-hit trigger. Usually they're worrying about Mechanoid, so they usually don't block the Med-X. And then I punish them really hard by putting in the hyperdriver, cranking it, and getting two
Getting an
action
action point.
points to
Yeah.
swing mech twice. Same as the case with Expedite. There's also some funky lines where also Expedites and Med-X are kind of like you either want to bait blocks when you don't have the hyperdriver, or you play it out in a way where you play the Expedite or the Med-X like the second or third boost attack, so that they have to question, oh, is the last card in his hand a hyperdriver or is it going to be in the
Yeah.
arsenal? And then if they mistake what it is, I can kind of put in the hyperdriver, crank that one, max, and use the second AP to max, not crank the maxed hyperdriver, and then Banksy afterwards. And that's like the
Yeah.
best when there's like a red hyperdriver, because I would crank it to go to 2, max, keep that one at 2, and then Banksy, and then have them decide if I want to get one on like 3 tokens or 3 counters, or have like the one that's at 1 go to 2. So I would have three hyperdrivers at 2 counters. So there's
I like
cheeky
the
plays with
blue
that.
Expedite. I don't like the blue Med-X because Med-X costs 1.
Yeah.
That's
So
just
yeah,
me.
it's true. It's true.
And I think
Um,
the thing is like anytime you have like a blue, like especially playing old dash, like if you just have a handful of blues, it's gonna be bad no matter what. Like if they
yeah.
do
Yeah.
one or they do two, it's like all right, whatever. It's still bad. So like this deck being like a lower blue count because you're kind of like cheating around it with the hyperdrivers.
Yeah.
You still have to have some. So like it's okay. I also didn't like these at first, but I feel like that point that Carlos was making about like if you just you're always like you're mind gaming your opponent to be like, oh, do I have the thing or do I have not? And like sometimes it really doesn't matter one way or the other, like
Yeah.
depending on the situation of the game. But you make the opponent think like, well, it's really bad if this hits and they get the hyperdriver and then they make mech, and then you don't have it and they just eat 2 and you get to arsenal something good for or for later.
Exactly.
Or they're like you said, worried about the mech you currently have, and they're like, okay, I don't care, and then you crank and you get an extra action point and you can mech them twice and kill them. So I think a little trickiness there is enough to make it worthwhile.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hopefully you're never actually playing the blue one, but like if you have to, I think it's better than a lot of other blues.
Yeah, I think if you're playing
Blue
the like the blue 0 or 1s, at that point you're trying to like chain them to go like 3 boosts to max V at the end. Um, just to keep the lower cost point down so that you can max V. But besides that, they're just you never want to play these cards hoping that they won't block to put in the hyperdriver. You need to always have a game plan of like, oh, if they block, that's fine. Like I can just pivot. But you don't want your sole focus to be like, I need this to hit. Please don't block, so I can get this hyperdriver in. You don't want to play with that kind of in the back of your head. So these have been really good for just baiting blocks or just punishing or allowing me to make that turn and then just like completely popping off. So these have been good kind of like catalysts, let's say.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, I feel like
Jumpstart,
those are kind of like the biggest decisions in the deck. Otherwise,
yeah,
like my opinion, the rest of the deck is like quite straightforward
yeah,
for like what
quite
you're trying to do.
straightforward. Yeah, Jumpstarts, 1 for 5, red zipper hits, pretty good. Pulse
Yeah.
Waves, I love this card. It really helps me like get information on
So
people's
good.
hands and
Yeah.
just take out momentum they could gain back.
But I will say don't get trapped into getting a pulse wave like I used to, where you're like, okay, I have to do 3 boosts and it has to end with this. Like sometimes it's okay that it's just like a 1 for 4 if your hand is clunky
Yeah.
or if you already have like tempo. Like it doesn't always have to line up to be like this great steal a card from the hand. Sometimes like just getting a little information or just having the attack is fine.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. T-bones, I think with the rest of the zero cost attacks, they're just really good for proccing hyperdrivers so you can get resources back to play out zipper hits or jump starts or whatnot. So these do serve a good function in the deck, but T-bones are also really great because they can just get like equipment. And there's been moments where I would like against Bravo specifically, I would T-bone blue them. They block with civic steps, not knowing that I was making mech that turn. So I would like make mech and double hit with mechanoid. So
Oof.
this could be
Yeah.
like kind of like using these appropriately can be really rewarding sometimes.
Learn to
Um,
use civic steps, you fools.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I feel like it's tough, man.
it's
Because
tough.
you're like, oh, Dash is gonna go again anyway, and it's like, well,
Well,
but
exactly. So it's tough
but over
to.
time people will get used to it. I mean, it's like the first week out, and like again, Carlos. I don't know if we said this, but Carlos was the only Max player, and there was only one other Dash player, which was France's fiance. It was the original Dash.
Yeah,
So
OG
there was
dash.
like very little mech representation, and I feel like historically there's pretty little. So I
yeah,
mean, it's understandable if people aren't quite sure about how to block what on this newfangled
yeah.
shiny
I
kit.
mean, if I'm a Bravo player, I like block with civic steps early, or if they don't have that many hyperdrivers out to punish. But also like Bravos like want to use it, want to block sparingly or block when they need to block, et cetera, et cetera. So they'll keep it. But that's another whole discussion. Throttles 2 for 6. Blue throttles 2 for 4. Help. I was a little iffy on this, but I think it's necessary. It helps kill annoying things like Mira guy, Popper as well for the Reds.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's a solid card. Good raid.
yeah,
And then Twin Drives. I love this
yeah. So how do you feel
card.
about Twin Drive, man? Okay, I was gonna ask
I
because I
love
like
this card because
I
I
keep
can
going back and forth.
I just keep this in Arsenal and I wait for Pulse Wave. I wait for tw like Max V. And then
It's
on high
so
octane
good.
turns, if I'm in mech and I have twin drive and I'm expecting a high octane, this is like amazing because I can double boost and then mech twice, mech 3 times with it, just that alone without any other help. So I
Like worst
really
case
like this
scenario,
card.
it's like you could just boost once and it's a two
Exactly.
for
You just
five go
boost
again,
once
right?
and then you don't like, yeah, I really like
Like
this
it's
card.
so good.
If I'm boosting twice with this, know something like Pulse Wave, Magnetic, or Max V is coming. Um, yeah, I
Yeah, I
love
mean, the
playing
good
this
thing
from
is, yeah,
Arsenal.
you give a lot of information when you choose how many times to boost,
Yeah,
but except against like maybe Icelander, like there's nothing they can do with that information because you're just
yeah,
gonna keep playing the turn out how you're gonna play it
exactly.
out. It's funny because like Twin Drive can also get you. I don't think I guess it never matters now, but like it gets you with your Pulse Wave to like higher numbers, but Pulse
Yeah,
Wave can only take actions. I guess the only time it could have possibly been relevant, which it doesn't matter now, is if Briar had like an embodiment and you were taking a big attack, but that does not matter anymore. So, but you can
yeah,
just do Twin Drive into Pulse Wave with 3 cards and get
yeah,
whatever card you want, pretty
yeah.
much with
Blue
the Pulse
Twin
Wave.
Drive,
Pretty
Pulse Wave, and you kind of see their whole hand,
yeah,
or like three cards of their hand at least.
yeah, and you're probably gonna get one of them. So
Yeah,
that's pretty.
so it's pretty good. 0 to 60s, everyone knows these are great. 0 for 4,
You might get a ticket, but that's all right.
exactly. And then zebra hits, I was originally only on reds, but I made my way around yellows because I was trying like recharges. I thought they were a little clunky for me. I might revisit them again because I feel like they interfered a lot with max V turns. Um, and I was like, oh, what's a good rate card that I can put in that? And zebra hit kind of fills that 1 for 4. It's a yellow. I can pitch it. I can play it. If I see a late game, I won't be mad. I'd be pretty happy. So these are fine as
Yeah, I think
well.
they're just like the core.
They're
They're
so
just
good.
like what you need. Yeah.
Yeah, and then mech, this is what we're playing for, the bread and butter of the deck. Yeah, I love this card.
You,
This great
you
card's
flip that over
great.
first, Carlos. Flip that
Yeah,
over
flipped
first.
it over. So yeah, it's just yeah, it's just great. Such good value. I will say though, certain matchups you need to be careful. case in point, Azuri, Arachne. You do not want to block with this
Yeah, you
against
block and
them.
then just get shredded. It's destroyed
Yeah,
immediately.
if
So
they're
be
not
careful.
blocking when you're hitting with mech and it's already at one counter, it means they have a shred. You want to block with this in those matchups when you know for sure they've already blocked and you know for sure they can't shred it. Um,
Yeah,
but
that's one of
even
the ones I think is the most dangerous. Like
yeah,
everybody was worried about the like buckling blow combo, and I feel like it's like quite hard to get off, and like you
That's
can
not that
protect
bad.
yourself from it. So
Yeah.
it's doable, I
yeah,
think, from the Bravo side. They can just like if we block early with equipment and they just like buckle Anothos, it's kind of they can kind of rip
yeah.
one of the
I think
equipments.
yeah. Unfortunately, you have to be very careful
You
with
have to
it
be
against
very
attack.
careful.
Because if you block with it even once, and they have red shred, it is destroyed. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, be very careful on the assassin matchups with this. The last thing
Yeah,
you want is to get it shredded and you have no weapon, no real payoff for all the
no
equipment
nothing.
that you have
Yeah,
on board or that you did have on board. So use it sparingly. But yeah, block five, like five temper, it's just so good.
yeah.
Master
How are you feeling
Cog,
about Master Cog? Yeah,
Yeah, how do you feel about this? This is
it's
like the one card
it's
I feel
okay.
like that's looked so
So
off.
it's still coded wrong on Talishar. If you pay for a hyperdriver from hand, a non-token hyperdriver, you can stack the triggers in a way where you can put the counter on the hyperdriver before you had the opportunity to crank it. And then
The reason for that is because when you play Hyperdriver, even though it hasn't resolved yet, it is an item that you control.
yes, yeah.
And MasterCog
Yeah,
says you could put a Steam counter on an item you control with Crank.
yeah. So it
exactly.
doesn't say an item in the arena because that would be different. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can
You
indeed target.
control the items.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you pay for max with this, it will not happen. But if you pay for max perfectly, no zero left after the fact, then you Banksy pitching Mastercog, you'll get the counter back.
Yeah.
Um,
Also,
Yeah.
if a hyperdriver only has one counter left and you pitch for an
Zipper hit.
attack,
Yeah.
like yeah, with Master Cog, you can put a counter on before you remove the counter for the hyperdriver trigger, and it will stay around with one counter,
Yeah.
It's
which
so
is
good.
Exactly.
pretty
So
good.
it's still relevant. It's still coded wrong on Talishar, but
Yeah. But
I mean I think it's fine.
yeah, I think just it'll be more games. Like there'll be whenever we get to a game where it's like, wow, this cost me the game. Like then we can revisit. But
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's
those
fine
games are
versus just a
like
random blue, right?
aggro. Yeah, the aggro games
Yeah.
were like that's where I'm like, eh, like
And even then, you
buy.
just cited out for a block, right? Like
Yeah, that's what I do. Aggro boost, dash, Katsu. This is a card I don't want to see typically.
yeah,
But yeah,
All right.
and then
And then
gas
the
ups.
gas
gas
up.
from it.
This
I
card is
so
gas.
so literally I got the list for Miles and I'm like, what the heck's this? Like, what the hell? Gas up
And I was like,
at
yeah, you get
blue.
another action point, man, if you have your mech
Yeah,
out.
so you pitch it whenever you see it, and then late game when you're in mech, you see it again, and you're like, oh, I can just gas up plus two on my next boost attack, get the hyperdriver from banished. So when you make mech, hopefully you have a non-token hyperdriver in there, or the
Mm-hmm.
non-token hyperdriver is under the Hyper X3.
Yeah,
And on the first usage of Mechanoid, you always take out a non-token hyperdriver and then gas
yeah,
up his life. So late game, you'll inevitably see this blue because you pitched it, or you're not inclined to play it. Maybe you boost one or two, but you'll see one. And at that point, you can kind of boost your next attack, get a hyperdriver, crank it, 2 APs, and then you can also play zero cost or a one cost, and then just kind of get hyperdriver back, and then as well as swing twice with neck, which is like the main appeal of this card.
It's so good.
It's really
yeah.
solid.
And it was also just kind of we were looking at other blues. Like a lot of blues in mech are just kind of like low impact. Like you never really want to be playing your blues. Like if you have to play a blue, it doesn't feel good. But gas up is a blue that like contributes towards your like game plan of like closing out with multiple mech attacks in a turn.
Yeah,
Um,
And
even the
sometimes
+2, the
relevant.
+2 helps, but like the
yeah,
real thing is getting your mech another attack because you've stacked action points with this by cranking the hyperdrive you bring back. So I
yeah. In a
definitely don't think we
way,
want to play any of the other colors, but like this
yeah,
one, it just plays a lot of different roles, and all those roles get together make it worth playing.
Yeah, and
Yep.
also like this card leaves less like you're not solely reliant on high octane to really get value off Mechanoid. This is kind of like a backup when you're not seeing when you're not seeing high octane, you can play this and then just chip at their life and just like really make them on put them on the back foot. So I really like this card. This is like the card I probably will never change. It's just so fun. +2, get a hyperdriver, and then another mech swing is just it's everything you really want. Um,
Yeah,
blocks too, but that's the power of this
It's a
card is
blue, right?
still really
Like
solid. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, you're most likely pitching it anyways.
Yeah. So
yeah.
this card has been super awesome for me. I really love this card. Um,
All right.
yeah, and then from there,
Otherwise, yeah, it looks good.
yeah, we can go into like some other cards I've been hearing
Ooh, there's
discussion
a lot.
around. Yeah, there's a lot. We'll briefly touch upon
We
them.
can do some rapid fire. Yeah,
Yeah,
we can start with like Big Bertha because right, we were talking about how we used to have
yeah.
Big
We
Bertha,
talked
right?
about Big Bertha. I had Big Bertha's blues and Crankshaft's blues, and they were fine. I just didn't like them when they were in hand, and
Yeah,
especially turn zero, where like I need to play a 1 or 0 cost, and then like get a hyperdriver out. There was sometimes where like I drew Big Bertha, Crankshaft, and then two other cards I didn't really want to play out, and then it was just kind of clunky. So I made a point
yeah,
to like having more 0, 1 costs or like leaning down the 2, 3 costs. And also the idea of
yeah,
like banishing, like I don't have control over what I banish. So why would I would rather control the cards I would have in hand. And so
yeah,
Crankshaft, Big Bertha, like great if they
yeah. I
if
think it
they
makes sense.
were boosted, but like I can't control that all the time. And then I also can't
Yeah,
bank on, oh, if I boost a Big Bertha, I'll be able to make mech. I don't want to
yeah.
have
You
that
can
kind
never.
of
Yeah,
mindset.
no, yeah,
So
totally
yeah,
fair.
that's why I ended up cutting those. Um, you know,
Yeah, I
pretty
just was
much the
like, we can
reason.
touch on that because that was like something that people probably thought of right away. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and people are running like 9 crankshafts and 6 Big Berthas or just the blue Big Berthas, and I'm like, it's a bit overkill. I don't think you really need it.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and also to start off with like the first draft of this deck, we had all the cog works in there because we
yeah.
also
It was in case of consideration for like Dromai. We were like, oh,
yeah,
I really don't want to get Tumultide randomly and then can't build mech. But
yeah. I think we
I don't think it's worth the sideboard slots. I think that's probably what we
yeah, and it's also
decided
like
early on.
yeah, also like when I was playing Oliver on Dromai, the blocks like Hyper X3, Foundry Heart, Galvanic Bender, whenever he played Kyloria or Snatch,
It's
I was like,
always
okay,
Kylo Ren. It's so
I
aggravating.
could
Yeah,
always like just block 4 cleanly instead of having to overcommit cards just to prevent him from stealing an item or from drawing a card. So although like the text on these are really good, like just basically like +1, Tackle Foundry Heart, get like mini remembrance, mech remembrance. Um, they're really good, but I just
yeah.
think
Just losing the
it's
block
just
is
tough.
like too severe. Yeah,
Yeah, and then also like people like, oh, I want to play Cogger Space Arms to play Evo Facebreaker. Because Facebreaker gives more attack and it's a mini like Oasis. But at that point, I'm like, in my head, you might as well just run Goliath Gauntlet because first you have to find Evil Facebreaker, and then you might
yeah,
banish Evil Facebreaker. You may not even see Facebreaker in aggro matchups.
yeah.
Whereas
I mean,
Goliath
I think.
Gauntlet, it's
Two
always on
card
the board.
slots too.
Yeah, it's like two
Yeah, I
or
think
probably three because you want to see these Facebreakers,
multiples.
right?
Yeah. I think it's just like if you're gonna run that, like you're probably running a different max deck than this like Mechanoid one, right?
Yeah,
I think there's like a lot of ideas here, which we'll probably go through as we go, that are
yeah,
just like possible. Like you could definitely brew them, but they
yeah.
don't necessarily fit this shell. Like you'll have to build a different like end game than mech.
I think the only
Because it's just like it's just too many things. You don't want to
yeah
dilute the main goal, right?
the only way I would include this if like Kano got super oppressive and I'm like I want a mini
Yeah,
mech Oasis. Yeah, and that's and yeah.
yeah,
But besides that, not really. That's plating, I guess. It could be other like configurations of the deck where you kind of want this for extra block.
yeah.
Hanabi,
Because the problem is, yeah, you if you
yeah.
block with it, it's gone, so you can't build mech anymore.
Yeah, but maybe like there's a world where you just want to go aggro and you just want it for block and you're not gonna make mech in those in that matchup.
It's so good as +3
Yeah.
life though.
Yeah. So
Like
and
it
just
could
one
prevent like
too.
a mass trigger, or like even get you up to the breakpoints for like a dominated Azalea area,
Yeah,
right?
or like
Yeah.
there's a
For Bravo.
CNC and
Yeah.
you're like you have too many hyperdrivers, or you have one, and you can cleanly block CNC.
Yeah.
With the one
Um,
card and adaptive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hanabi Blaster could.
Yeah.
There's a world where this could work, because turns where you don't have Hanabi Blaster, you just max, and then you have resources to do 3 boosts the next turn to get another Steam counter on this, and then when that happens, you can kind of shoot Hanabi Blaster. Um, I see a world, and I'll maybe try this, but for now, we'll see if I need it. Cyclo Pistol, we kind of touched upon it, but I don't think you could. I don't know. Banksy's really solid. Playing this just to make High Octane more relevant maybe isn't the hugest payoff. Um, I don't know. I'm probably gonna cut it. I don't think we need it, but no,
Yeah.
my thoughts. Big Shot. I haven't tried this, but I'm hearing
I
good
really
things about it.
Yeah, I feel like, especially with the version, if you're really just trying to go mech, I could see playing Big Shot in the sideboard instead of Max Velocity, which sounds kind of crazy, but
No
um,
way.
Yeah.
hey,
Uh,
whoa.
it's
I'm
tough.
saying
I like my
because
Max
the
Beast
thing is
though.
like I think that it is so much more reliable to get off
Oh
Yeah.
in
yeah.
the deck, and the difference between 10 and 8 is like actually it's not huge. It's
Yeah.
still a popper. It's also like if you have it just this and another card, like you can still play it. It's
Yeah.
still just like 2 card 6 if you're stuck like that. So I feel like it's lower ceiling, higher floor. So I can see it, but I think you have to test with it.
Cost
Yeah.
3 is really restrictive though.
I
I think
mean,
it's doable though
boosting three
with
times is more
hyperdrivers.
restrictive.
There's a world where like
Yeah,
if you have 2 hyperdrivers out, which is very doable, and you have twin drive, you can twin drive, get the 2 resources back to have 3, and then big shot. So that's like a three
Or even like
card,
Foundry Heart it.
three card
yeah,
It's
13. Yeah. So
yeah, it's just like it's so costly. There is a cost to playing Big Shot with maximum velocity, right?
yeah. That's
yeah.
why I would say replace. It would be a replacement, and you have to
Yeah,
test it.
if you're gonna play these cards, and that too with payload, you need to be aware of the ratio of like turn enders, like maxi payload, big shots, because then they can kind of show up all in your hand and get
Bump
really
up, you have
clunky
an
real
awesome turn.
quick.
Yeah, yeah,
So you want to be, if you're gonna include these, you got to be careful of like the ratios of like turn
yeah.
enders.
So
Um,
yeah, we can talk about payload real quick actually
yeah,
because they're just
payload,
like they're similar.
I think it's fine, but
Like
you know,
I used to be like, wow, it's like the dominate is so powerful, like it closes out games. Because sometimes with old mech, you just kind of dirtle and try to slowly kill somebody, and it's like guaranteed kill.
yeah,
But that use case kind of fell out of favor when it was like a lot of polarizing matchups where like if you're at a point where you need payload to kill somebody, it's gonna be very hard to keep 3 cards and one of them being payload.
yeah,
In my opinion. But I think if you're the aggressor and you're going fast and you just want to kill people quickly, this could be one.
yeah,
By the end of my time with like Dash in the old meta, it was just an extra popper in the sideboard for me, and that's why I was fine with like replacing it with Rev Up now. Um, but there's definitely actually merit to the dominate. I think there's just like it's variations of like you were saying, Carlos, like turn enders. So
yeah. I think it's
it's
fine.
definitely a consideration, but
Yeah,
you need to people need to have a real reason to play it, not just being like, wow, dominate's cool. Like you need to see a gap in your game plan that you think is filled by payload. So
yeah,
that's what I would
yeah. I agree. I agree. Blessing of
say. Yeah.
Ingenuity, I can't really justify this card too much.
No,
Um,
I don't think it works. I mean, obviously it doesn't work at all with HyperX 3.
yeah, you can't
And then
crank.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
you
even if
can't
they're in the
crank the start of
graveyard,
the turn.
can't crank them, and then yeah, I don't know.
Well,
It's
you
it's
can
hard.
crank them, you don't gain the action point. That's
Exactly,
actually the problem.
exactly, exactly. Correct, correct.
So yeah, it's not quite where we want to be. I
Yeah,
don't think with this version of the deck, maybe there's another one that is slower or
yeah.
needs more time to build mech or something, but no, not in this one.
Uh,
So you've been
yeah,
testing with Boom Grenade, right? How you
yeah.
feel about Boom
Boom
Grenade?
grenade. I think it's solid. I'm trying it out right now, just to hedge into more aggro matchups, pure aggro matchups. I think it's really solid. I think it also kind of helps. I think it'll help Islander a bit more. Just make them block out their full hand. Now that the Arsenal. Um, yeah, I and then also Banksy. If
Uh,
Banksy hits, you can get Boom Grenade back because if they block out all your attack actions and they like crank Banksy hit, you can put a counter on Boom Grenade again and just keep the pressure.
I would not bring that against Icelander.
Yeah, I have to figure that
I
one
don't
out.
think
We'll
so.
we'll talk about it another time.
Yeah, it needs more testing. Firewall.
Yeah.
I detest this card. What's up, Carlos? What's up with Firewall?
I I don't love it either. I'm like we talked about it, Miles, and you're like, yeah, like it just doesn't like it doesn't really contribute to our game plan of like being aggressive and just
It could be so clunky too.
yeah.
Well,
And
it's just
then
you
if you
can't.
see
It's
Mechanoid on
really
top,
not being a D-react
yeah,
is just a huge liability. Like
Yeah.
if you have this in your hand and you just it's I don't think it's where you want to be ever.
I could see a
Like it's
world where
also
like
the effect is a downside for you, like because you can't control it. So you could be like, wow, the thing I need on top, goodbye. Like I just don't think
Well, you
I
can't
don't
really
think that's
say
the best
that
idea.
because you're boosting the top card of your library anyway. So
Yeah, but
yeah, I
you're like I
mean
don't want. I'm not boosting when I'm blocking. Like that like feels pretty bad. Because a lot of times if you're stuck on a low card hand because you blocked, you don't boost. You just like attack without boosting to preserve deck. So
yeah.
um
I think
I
the
don't know.
only world where this could be okay in your deck is if in like then like somewhat aggro matchups where you want to go slow, develop hyperdrivers. This could be nice to just like just block breakpoints evenly, but we'll see. I'm not sold on it. Maybe I try it, maybe I don't. But yeah, I mean
Gigawatt. What
Gigawatt.
is up with?
I
I
see this
really.
on the Discord like, oh, Gigawatt boost
All right.
Mechanoid.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would not
hope
want to
hopium.
include this just so I can do
Box
that.
two is like just like the rate of other cards you have that actually have boost. Like I don't think we want this.
I don't think you bring this
Um,
in any colors, because you
like
have High
yeah,
Octane and
it makes
Gas
it
Up
10
to help.
overpower for
Yeah,
sure, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a
think it's very
non-bow,
good.
right? With like a bunch of other cards.
yeah,
Well,
You'd rather play
the
like a
whole
one
goal
for
is just
four boost.
to boost your mech so you can
yeah. You
actually
don't
kill
have to
somebody, but like
boost your mech attack to get
I
the
don't think so.
plus. So, I don't know. It's just like you have High Octane and Gas Ups to like go wide. So why do you need to go tall? With
Yeah.
just
It's
yeah,
very narrow case use.
very narrow
Like
case
Yeah.
use. Yeah, I
the
agree.
good things are like Banksy and bumping your mech. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Besides that, Heist. I don't think Heist is good in Max just because if you're running Hyper X3, those hybrid drivers that would go to bench would go under that, and so Heist would be kind of not
I mean,
super relevant.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
doesn't
whoa,
heist threaten the
whoa, whoa,
same
whoa.
thing as gas up once you're
Hold on,
missing?
hold on a second.
Yeah, that too. But also like
Hold
if
on
you're
a second.
playing the mirror, this helps a lot too.
Exactly. This
Um,
helps in against any other mech. If you're playing against Dash IO or OG Dash,
yeah,
Heist, you can grab items from their banner zone.
yeah,
Yeah.
Relevant.
it is relevant.
But
I just don't.
yeah, it's a game player if you know what your meta expectation is going to be,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
it's like yeah, I don't think the mirror or the mech mirror is like soup. I don't think that's like the matchup you really want to target to win.
Yeah.
I don't think you really need to target that much to win.
Yeah. I
Uh,
think the thing for me with heist was like if before testing, if Twin Drive was didn't end up feeling good, then I would be like, oh, we could play heist instead. But I think the curve, the like 2 cost red curve in this deck is like pretty competitive, and
yeah,
I don't think you can be cutting throttle for it because it's a popper. So
yeah,
I like it. I think it would have to be a big time metagame call to play heist.
yeah.
But
I think it's way more relevant in Dash IO, OG
yeah,
Dash, maybe. But Max,
Definitely Dash IO.
I'd be less on board with it.
yeah.
Um,
So Warhorn, I feel like this was we were talking for a while about being like
Is a trap.
Max is all over the place.
it
Well,
is a
yeah, okay, hold on,
trap.
yeah. Max
Yeah,
is all over the place. It was like, oh, this is a thing that helps you break their thing instead of like whatever else you're gonna do. But I just want to go aggressive. I don't. I like that
yeah,
was the big takeaway we had was like, yes, getting this off feels cool, but like if you could have just killed them instead, you would rather do that.
yeah.
So
So
I don't think you can waste the tempo to play Warhorn.
It's
my
such a liability
experience
too.
with this is
And
like,
then if you just whiff on the
yeah.
one generic card in your deck, you would be so tilted.
Well,
So
Cogwork Slugs does help. You can don't have to pop it to just get your action
I
point
mean,
back.
you have it's like a get out of jail, but it's like it always feels bad.
Yeah,
So
it feels bad. I was like really annoyed by Oliver who played this when I was playing his Dromai, and I was like, well, I have no way of, you know, securely winning because he just like break it and just break my mech. So I
yeah,
was like, oh, do I bring this in? So if I get it first, he's disincentivized to play Warhorn, and if he already has it, and then I get it out, then he has to make the decision to kill my Warhorn, or else I'd kill his. but it's just too much. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
think
think
you
that's
need
the where we
it.
want to be in.
Yeah,
Did you play pistol into Oliver?
no, I'm Banksy, Banksy all the
I
way.
think you should try pistol on that
I haven't felt like I
potentially.
needed it. Uh,
It's like, but like it's an alternate thing where if you don't get off if you feel like the mech is a liability, then you can pistol them down to death, right? And
Yeah.
freely use your high octanes.
yeah, I don't know.
I
I
don't know.
feel
I don't.
like
I don't think. I don't think so. I
we
think
have
you
enough
want to just.
poppers
I
where like
think
we can
you just
disrupt
want
their
to go
turns
fast.
to save life, and then um, yeah, I don't know.
I think we want to pressure
I
their
like the
hand so they
Banksy.
can't play dragons instead of
Yeah,
like trying to do dragon control. You want to stay ahead.
yeah.
Talked about payload already. Recharge.
We
I
talked
think recharge
about.
is like
I think it's solid.
fine.
I think
I
if I were
think
to go
it's
back, I'd put it
better
in like a
early.
two of. Um,
Okay.
I feel like when I played it, it would just like annoy me when I had max B and I needed it to be like a 0 or a 1 cost boost. But I do if you're not running like token if you're not running non-token hyperdrivers, I can see the case where you need this just to keep your token hyperdrivers around. Um, yeah.
I
Yellow I
like the
wouldn't
card a lot.
run. Red I would
Yeah.
probably run. Um, I'll probably go
All right.
back into
Yeah,
trying
that's
this.
reasonable.
Soup
Yeah.
ups, I think it's fine. It's pretty versatile. Blocks 4 if you want to sacrifice a hyperdriver. Um,
See, this is a card
I
that
don't
I would
know.
play over Firewall if you were really
Yeah, I
down bad
agree with
for a
that.
4, because
Yeah,
it's still a 4 attack, right? And it can be a go again. So I could
yeah.
see this one potential sideboard in the future, but because like all the numbers are right, but it just feels like it
It
clashes a
feels
little with the
weird.
game plan. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't
that's
know.
fine.
It doesn't proc
Tick.
hyperdrivers, but you want to play it out
Well,
after the
one of them has to
first.
die. Like I
Yeah,
think I think it like explains itself about like why it's good and why it's bad. So
yeah. You have to play out one
uh,
boost. Hyperdriver needs to die, and then this gets go again.
yeah,
I don't
it's a
Um,
think I would
fallback. It's a
ever
fallback
want to
tool.
run
It's a
3,
fallback
right?
tool. Yeah.
Because like
yeah,
if you ever
maybe
get a
two
hand with
max.
like 2 of them or more,
Yeah.
it'd
Yeah.
be really bad.
Okay. TikTok clock. This card has so much text for the fact that it doesn't do that much.
Yeah, so basically, if you
Um,
have it out and one of your tech actions hits, you can destroy up to 2 other items in the arena. If you do, deal however much. If you destroy 2, you deal 2.
deals one per. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an anti-dash IO card, right?
Yeah. I've had a mech mirror where they played this out while I was in mech, and they're like, "Oh, I'm attacking you now," and I'm like, "I'll just block it with mech," and then it
Yeah. I just
died the
don't think.
next turn. So it's just
I
like.
think all of the things that are like tech cards. I think you need to be the one asking questions instead of playing tech cards.
Yeah, so I
It's
didn't
my
see
opinion.
this to be like super big, and people are like, "Oh, you could play to Dromai to kill their Warhorn," but they could just block out perhaps. I don't know.
And
I
then
was
That's
just like,
so
I just
narrow.
okay. No, no, no.
yeah.
Let's
So I
move on.
was
Let's
like,
move
yeah.
on from TikTok clock.
Zoom
I think
in,
it's a cool card, but no. Yeah. Zoom
zoom
in.
in. I've heard,
It's underrated. I think the problem is it is 2 for 5, which you don't want.
yeah,
I think the
and
opting, you have to be ending your chain for the opt to be actually really relevant. It's after you boost, you get the opt for the boost from this attack. Azumin is a card that I love the art and I love the vibe, but I think every time I've played it, it has been just a little worse than I want to be. Like
yeah.
if it was like 1 for 4 opt, I would be in way more than it being 2 for 5 because I
And I
think
think dive through
the
data
cost is just
is
too much.
just automatically takes this place as way
Yeah,
more.
and we're not even playing that card, so like I think that should say all we have to say. I think.
Yeah, also I forgot to put in this list, but data link, the 0 for 3 on hit opt, it's
Yeah,
fine.
we're just playing like Expedite and MedX instead, and then the
Yeah,
other older boost cards are better damage rate, and that's like what we really care about. So,
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I agree. We talked about
yeah,
crankshafts.
Crankshaft. Yeah,
Moonshot,
Moonshot
I
is
would
like
love to
alternate
make
game
this
plan,
work.
right?
I would love to make this work, but it's just so many hoops you have to play around. You have to boost and hope all your hyperdrivers still stick around, and then destroy them to then get the buff. And then if you sacrifice 3 of them, you get overpower. It's just
I
a
mean,
lot
this
to
is
work
also a card
around.
where actually, if you play Moonshot,
Yeah, yeah,
this is a card where you are then incentivized to play things like, which I didn't even think about this. I don't think we've ever. Incentivized to play things like Recharge and um, Gigawatt because it needs 10 or more power, but you can give it boosts from other cards, right?
yeah.
So you could just kill like one hyperdriver and pay 2 and give it a boost from one of those cards, and then it's 10 overpower, which is fine. You're kind of using another card to augment the power, but I
Mm,
think that could be something we could crash in the future. But I
I
think it's
think
yeah,
no matter what, it's a lot of hoops to jump through. Like
it
yeah,
like it. I think as a one-off, it's fine. but it's not something you want to play towards. It's something like you can use to end the game.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to like make this work as like a 3 of in your deck, why are you just not trying to go for Maxx for your big shot? Because
Yeah.
those are so
Yeah.
much easier to hit. This
Yeah.
has so many hoops.
Yeah. I think there's edge cases, but I think you'd have to really build a deck around it, and then I think it's like maybe it's a worse deck at that point or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Penetration script. I
I
think
see this a lot. I think We Make Best made this popular. People started
I
talking
don't
about it.
I don't love it in Maxx. I think it's a great card. I think it's great in Dash, and I like trying it in old Dash as well. Dash, the Inventor Dash, but I just think all these like kind of cute items are just not what you want to be doing in Maxx. You want to, or at least this version of Maxx, right? You want to
Yeah,
be
I feel
building
like
towards mech,
you want to focus
going
on the hyper
wide on attack.
drivers. Yeah. Conmounts.
Like this basically gives you +3 to +6. You probably just like +3, right? For
Yeah.
one.
Some people have
That
also
sounds
mentioned
not
like we can make our zipper hit sixes so we can pop dragons with it.
just play poppers instead of this
Just
card. I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
you have so many good poppers already.
Yeah, I think I don't know.
I just don't think it's where you want to be on this deck. I think that's
If you're worried about fatigue, that's why we have, or like people trying to block you out and you're trying to get over with
if you're worried
penetration
about that, you should
scripts.
play like Overload script instead. Like
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Overload script also costs 0.
Yes, yeah, and I don't think we want that either. Like I think
Yeah.
it's a dilution of the game plan. But
Yeah. Combustible
this
courier.
is cute.
Yeah, red.
I played against people on Talishar playing blue Muscle Courier, and it felt terrible to me. Like it felt like it was just a dead card every time, where they paid 2 for me to block them with white. Wow, I have my 2 block in hand. Thank you. Like it felt like really bad. I don't like even red Combustible Courier in Dash was good when you had like Pounder and your
And
Gauntlet for
gauntlet.
8.
Yeah.
6
Then
even
asking
made
for
it
3
not feel good,
cards.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the blue version, I think people are like, well, it forces blocks. You're paying 2 for it, and I do not think it is worth the 2
Yeah.
costs to get
I
a 2
mean,
block for your opponent.
I've seen arguments for like, oh, but you can kill Kyloria and Ashwing and then buff your next attack, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I would not listen to those arguments.
I
If
mean,
you're playing a blue
you're
just to do that,
paying 2. You're paying 2 to do that.
yeah,
It's too bad. It's too much. You don't want to be doing it. Like
yeah.
you don't.
it's the equivalent of a 2 for 5,
Yes, which is
right?
just not that
And that's
ridiculous.
if it hits.
Yeah.
Like the best case scenario is hitting a dragon.
Yeah.
You have too many worst case scenarios.
Yeah. And then
Hyper
someone
Scrapper.
at Armory mentioned this to me. I think it's pretty cute. If you have 3 hyperdrivers in your graveyard and you play this, you pitch a blue to play this, you banish those 3, you get +5, you get +3, make it go to 5, and it gets go again, and then you get 6 resources, and you can make mech afterwards if you have 3 hyperdrivers out. I can see could be interesting where like
That's
if we
a
have
crazy lineup where you have 3 in graveyard and 3 in play.
yeah. I mean,
I think it
It's
is.
just too
I
much.
think this card could be good in other shells where you're not trying to build mech.
I think it's fine. It's just a utility, but like there's some times where like, oh, I'm keeping these 3 hyperdrivers at 1 counter alive, so I feel like I know I'm gonna draw into mech, and so I can just pop off. And then this just makes it so like I can block 2, or I could block 1, have blue hyper scrapper and mechanoid, and then just get the on hit, or just get the banish the 3 hyperdrivers, and then do the thing without having to sacrifice my hyperdrivers to
No,
boost.
But then you're putting this in to compete with all the rest of the boost cards. You're reducing your boost card count.
Yeah, this is true. I think when someone mentioned it to me, like, oh, I have to like look at how many hyperdrivers are
You're
usually in the
listening to
grave
way too many
by the end
people
of the
bringing
turn.
random things
Yeah,
up
dude.
to you, Carlos.
Stop talking about these trash cards. Keep
Hey,
going.
You're like, oh,
it's
brought
always
this up.
worth like thinking about. I haven't tried
We
it.
thought about it. We
I
thought
thought
about
about
it
it.
in set review.
Thought about it.
In set review, and we thought it wasn't good then. Steel Street Hoons. All
I
right,
wasn't as
please not
invested
say
in
anymore.
our set review
This
because like,
card,
oh, I don't really
Steel Street
care
Hoons. Steel Street Hoons is not good. Like Alan tried playing it. I tried playing it.
I
you tried
wish
playing
it was
Not
good.
It's not good. It's unfortunate. It's not good.
Yeah.
All the numbers are off by like 1 or 2. It's just not. It's across the board not good. If it was all the things on it were on at the same time, it would still not be a card we really want to play.
Yeah, I
Like
think
3
the
for
cost
5 that block
3
score
is
is not.
just the
Yeah.
really the big one.
No.
Um,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm
it,
not.
it could be
If
pretty
it
common
costs
where like
two,
a hyperdriver,
it would be nice.
ends.
I think even if it costs 2, we wouldn't love it. Like I just don't think it's what you want to be doing. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Um,
Blue Zipper Hit, I think it's 1 for 3 because it's not a breakpoint. It feels bad. Like all the other cards, like we were saying, like Medics is like Medics and this are both blocked by 1 card, but Medics like threatens something, and this one doesn't.
yeah.
Um,
Yep.
and then like all your blues always feel bad to play, but when you pay 1 for a card that is still blockable with 1 card, it feels really bad.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's
Like it
still
feels
on
it feels
rate
worse than
and
just playing a
fine,
0 cost
but
card.
yeah. It's like
Um, but
if you're not convinced by other blues, but yeah, it's a fine card. You don't have to put it in, but yeah. And that's pretty much all the cards I really want to talk about or I've seen. But yeah, so this is kind of our thoughts on Max. I think
yeah, big
changes.
mech Max. We got to make up
Yeah,
names so we can be like, oh, Big Dragon Empress, and it's like, well, they're all the same deck with like 2 cards change, whatever.
yeah.
Uh,
I think going
but yeah,
forward
this is just like
though,
mech Max.
yeah. I think going forward though, I don't think the mech plan is like viable in like pure aggro matchups. It's just super hard. So I might kind of take some cards out, namely Tiba and Meganetic, to maybe put Goliath, Crown, maybe put Boom Grenades, and maybe some more aggro-oriented cards. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is to make it more modular, where you can sideboard in the
Yeah,
Mechanoid plan to like slower or not as fast matchups, or we can in pure aggro matches we can set in these like Max V, Boom Grenades, and maybe some other cards. That's kind of like my thoughts at the moment where this deck should go. I don't think you should always want to play play mech in every matchup. Um, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on where this will go in the future. This
yeah,
list is not like the end all be all. It's a good starting point that I was working with, but I think I do recognize that kind of the hitch in the overall game plan. I think the matchup spread could be improved by like the aggro sideboard. But otherwise, it's a super fun deck. I would love to play Mechanoid every matchup, but it's just not consistent. You may not draw into it. You may banish it. If you draw in the hype drivers, they can, and on turn where they're popping off, you just don't like to see it. So yeah, that's kind of my take on where the deck will go, where I'll probably be adjusting it to. And yeah, like and subscribe. If you have any questions, if you want to see more gameplay on Max, let us know. Put it in the comments, and we'll get it to you. We'll backseat game. And
yep.
yeah, thanks everyone.
Peace.
Bye.